So today, we are talking about a huge shift in how work actually gets done. It's called Agentic Workflow Automation. And trust me, this isn't just about making things faster. It's about making them smarter. We're talking about moving way beyond those simple, repetitive tasks into an era where our digital workers can actually think, reason, and adapt on the fly.
All right, so to really get why this is such a game changer, we first have to talk about where automation is right now. For, I don't know, the last decade or so, pretty much everything has been built on this very simple, very rigid logic. If this happens, then do that.
And the best way to picture this is to think of a train on a track, right? As long as everything is perfectly lined up, that train is incredibly efficient. It's fantastic at moving heavy stuff from point A to point B. And that's perfect for those simple, predictable, repetitive tasks.
But here's the catch. What happens when the real world gets messy? Because, let's be honest, the real world is always messy. That rigidity is its biggest weakness. The moment the input data is just slightly different from what the system expects, a typo in a form, an extra column in a spreadsheet, the whole process just derails. You get an error, and guess what? A human has to jump in and clean up the mess.
And this is exactly where this new idea comes into play. We're talking about a whole new way of thinking. We're moving away from a system that just blindly follows a list of instructions to one that actually understands the goal. It gets the intent behind the work.
And this slide, this is where the metaphor really makes sense. We're basically shifting from a fixed paper map to a dynamic navigation system, like the GPS in your car. A traditional bot, that's the paper map. It just follows a pre-drawn route. If there's a roadblock, it's stuck. But an agent has a GPS and a steering wheel. It knows the destination and it can navigate around traffic, roadblocks, whatever, in real time to find the best possible path.
So, let's break down the technical differences here. You can see it's pretty stark. The big thing to notice is that agentic automation kicks off with a goal, not just a simple trigger. And look at this. It can handle messy, unstructured data. But the most crucial part, it can self-correct when it fails. That means it doesn't just scale with the volume of your work, it scales with its complexity.
And what this all boils down to is a fundamental change in our role. This is so important. We stop being the person who has to think through every single step, every possible exception. Instead, we become the manager. We define the objectives, we set up the guardrails, and then we let our intelligent digital worker figure out the smartest way to get it done.
Okay, so how does this all actually work under the hood? Let's dive into the anatomy of an agent. It really comes down to 3 superpowers that make this all possible.
First up, every agent has a brain. And this is typically a large language model, but we're not just using it to write poems or emails. In this setup, its main job is reasoning. It takes a big, high-level goal, something like plan a new marketing campaign, and it breaks it down into logical, actionable steps. It's the planner, the strategist. Next, it's got a toolkit. Reasoning is great, but it's all abstract. Automation has to happen in the real world. So the toolkit is the set of actual applications and tools the agent can use. We're talking Slack, HubSpot, your database, you name it. This is how the agent's brilliant plans turn into actual actions.
So how does the brain talk to the toolkit? Well, the magic piece of technology here is called function calling. And you can think of it like a little 4-step dance. First, the agent's brain decides it needs some information from the outside world. Second, it asks the platform, hey, can you go get this for me from HubSpot? Third, the platform acts, making that API call. And finally, the agent takes that real-world data and synthesizes it into its next thought, its next action. This is what separates a simple chatbot from a true digital worker.
And the third superpower is memory. This is a huge deal. Traditional automations are totally stateless. They run, and then they forget everything that just happened. But agents maintain context. They have short-term memory to remember the flow of a conversation, and they have long-term memory. This is often done with a cool technique called RAG. That's Retrieval Augmented Generation, which lets them search a knowledge base, so they can pull up your company's style guides or internal policies whenever they need them.
Okay, theory is great, but what does this actually look like on the job? How does this all come together in a real business? Let's walk through a couple of really powerful real-world examples. So first up, let's look at marketing. Imagine you have an agent whose whole mission is to take one big piece of content, say a podcast you just recorded, and turn it into a full week's worth of social media content, all on its own.
So what does it do? It starts by transcribing the audio, obviously, but it doesn't just create a summary.
No, it goes deeper. It analyzes the entire transcript to pinpoint the most engaging, the most shareable, the viral moments. Then, it drafts unique posts, custom-tailored for LinkedIn, for Twitter/X, for your newsletter, and this is the really mind-blowing part. It uses what's called a critic loop to review its own work against your brand's style guide, and it'll actually rewrite its drafts until they meet that quality standard. Incredible.
All right, let's switch gears to operations. Imagine an agent that acts as a digital SDR, an automated sales development rep, whose job is to handle all of your inbound leads.
Okay, so a new lead comes in. This agent grabs that raw, usually kind of messy lead form and actually makes sense of it. Then it uses tools like Clearbit to enrich that data, finding the company's size, the person's job title. Next, it calculates a fit score based on criteria you set. And finally, it routes that lead with perfect consistency every single time. It rejects the spam, it puts the mid-tier leads into a nurture sequence, and for the really high-value prospects, it sends a hot lead alert straight to your sales team, complete with a full briefing. Wow!
Now, those examples are seriously powerful, right? But the future here isn't just about having single, siloed agents doing individual jobs. No, the real vision is about building an entire digital team.
And the next big step in this evolution is something people are calling agent swarms or multi-agent systems. The idea here is that you have a manager agent that can take a really complex project, break it down, and then assign all the different pieces to specialized agents. You might have a researcher agent, a writer agent, a QA agent, all collaborating, all working together to get the job done.
You know, this really represents a fundamental shift in how we even interact with AI. Right now, we're mostly in the co-pilot phase. That's where we, the human, initiate a task, and the AI assists us. But we are moving quickly toward an autopilot model. This is where proactive agents are monitoring things in the background, they're identifying opportunities or problems, and then they propose actions for us to approve. It completely flips the script.
And look, I know this might sound a little like science fiction, but it's happening way faster than you think. The prediction is that by 2026, that's just around the corner, a full 40% of the enterprise applications you use every day will have these kinds of proactive, task-specific agents built right in.
So what does this all mean? The real takeaway here is that we are moving beyond just automating simple tasks. We're now on the verge of orchestrating intelligent outcomes. An entire digital workforce is coming online, ready to tackle your most complex, most valuable challenges, which leaves us with one final thought. If you could hire a team of these intelligent digital workers tomorrow, what's the very first problem you'd have them solve?